Before we start recording, we have to make sure that we have an audio interface and it's hooked up to our computer via USB, Firewire, Thunderbolt, depending on which kind of unit that you have. You have to make sure that most mics are hooked up through XLR cable. So here's my XLR cable hooked up to my microphone. That's hooked up, and I have my phantom power button pushed in. I have that phantom power button pushed in. I have my headphones connected. Now once those things are connected, I just have to make sure that I'm getting the signal. I'm getting a signal. Now we're ready to go. Let's open up Pro Tools. We're going to run Pro Tools for the very, very first time. Now, I'm one of those people that just refuses to upgrade. I'm still running Pro Tools 10, but if you get Pro Tools, most likely you're either running Pro Tools first, which is a free version of Pro Tools you can get from the site. I'm going to actually put a link in the description. Either you're running a subscription-based version, or either you've actually bought Pro Tools. So whatever version you have, just create a new session. We're going to create a blank session. So on Pro Tools 12, it just says create, and just go in. Don't do it from a template. Just create a blank session. And what you want to do is you want to name your session. I'm going to say test begin. I'm going to find where I want to actually put my session, and I'm going to place it there. I'm just going to place it on the desktop just for now. Now that we have Pro Tools open as a blank session, as a matter of fact, one thing that I forgot to exclude that is when you open up your session, you want to make sure that it's on 24-bit 48K. Now this is important. You could record 32-bit and you could record at the highest at 192, but I generally find that you have a lot of problems once you start recording that high. So make sure you always begin your sessions with those parameters. Make sure it's 24-bit. If you have something smaller like a Focusrite Solo, which I showed you guys at first, I usually record that in 24-bit and then 48K. But if I'm recording off my Apollo Quad, I'm usually going up to 32-bit float. I'm usually going up to like 192, or I might stay in 48K depending on the session, but that is above CD quality, so that's very, very important. So after you get that, you're going to see this kind of screen. Now the first thing that you want to know with Pro Tools is that when you start a blank session, it comes with a click track. So if you see this click track, this is to help you stay on beat. Now your click track is very, very important. So make sure that you keep with this click track. It's going to help you. I'm going to show you that later. The very next thing that we want to do in Pro Tools is we want to import our beat. So we're going to go to File. We're going to go to Import. We're going to go to Audio. And my beat is Money Go. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on Convert. I'm going to click on Done. And then I'm going to click on Open. Then I'm going to also show you guys another way if you want to do it a lot quicker. So Pro Tools also allows you just to drag in the track, which is much, much easier. And you can just drag it to the front. So let's just delete that file. So once you have your beat established, click it to make sure that you're getting some sound. So this is very important. So click to make sure you're getting some sound. Your click track might come up and might beep with it. So just mute your click track and make sure that you're getting sound. Okay, now that we're getting sound, if you're not getting sound, what I want you to do is go to your playback engine and make sure that you're on the adequate, that your audio interface is showing up. And you can find that by going to Playback Engine, and it's usually going to name your audio interface. So either, like I have two interfaces hooked up right now, the Scarlett Solo and the Universal Audio Apollo. So make sure that it's on Apollo or whatever interface that you're using, and then click OK. And if it's not on your interface, then it's going to restart Pro Tools. So just click OK, and it's going to restart Pro Tools. After this, what we have to do is, since now that we have our beat in there, we have to find our tempo. Now, even though we're just beginners, tempo is very, very, very important. It's important because tempo is used in a particular case, in conjunction with the grid when we need to move vocals. Tempo also helps establish the usage in things like effects processors like delay. You know, when we begin to use certain plugins or certain effect processors, they depend very, very heavily on the tempo. So how we establish tempo is you right click here and you want to make sure, right click at the top and you want to make sure that your MIDI control is enabled. Now a lot of people like to uncheck or check this little guy right here, this little composer right here. I like to check it because I don't want to set my tempo manually. I could go here and just type in my tempo, whatever it is, but I usually like to do it manually. So one thing I like to do is make sure this little composer guy is clicked, so I can this little composer guy is clicked so I can control my tempo from here. And then also I want to make sure that this metronome is also pressed in. It's also enabled. So after I do that, then I go here and then I find the very first hit of the kick. So I'm going to show you. So I find the very first kick drop, boom. And how you expand on it, I know that like I expanded it, and you guys might not know, but this is a shortcut key. In and out, it's command out and command in. I'll definitely put the shortcut keys. These are one of the more important shortcut keys that you need. Command in, we'll zoom in. Command out, zoom out. You could also control them from down here in Pro Tools in the bottom, in this bottom right hand corner. Boom. So what you want to do is you want to expand that out. You want to go to here. If you look at the top left hand corner, you have shuffle, you have spot, you have grid, you have slip. We're not going to go over those right now. Just know that you need it on slip. And you want to make sure you drag it to the you want to go to your tempo marker and you want to drag it to the very top right here, and this is how you move over. You can't control it from anywhere else. You have to grab actually on the tempo marker and take it where you need to. So I'm gonna, from that very first kick drop, that's how we're gonna set our tempo. So grab it there, and now you got it. Now it's hitting on, now it's hitting from the very first measure of that very first kick. You want to press your space bar. Space bar is how you play. Play and stop, space bar, or either control it from the top. So press play, and then you hit that tempo mark. You double click it, and this tempo change is going to come up. Now while that's going, what you have to do is tap T. And if you tap T on, if you tap it in rhythm with the beat, it's gonna give you something close to the tempo. Now it gave me 106. Now what I want to do is unclick this click track. Turn my beat down a little bit. Now that sounds a little bit too fast. So if it sounds just a little too fast, but it sounds like it's close, what I can do is I can go here and go to 105. Hit OK. Now 105 sounds like it's it. I zoom in. And what I do is I go to this little gray part of the area. This is my time. This is like my timetable in Pro Tools. And I'll go later down the beat. I'll click that. And then I'll make sure that the beat is still on. So now that that's done and we've set the tempo marker, we've imported our beat. Let's move on. Okay, the next step into our recording journey is we're going to establish channels, buses, and we're going to talk about faders and inputs and outputs. So I'm going to teach you guys now to establish a channel and to understand what these channels are. Is that, let's say we want to record. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to track, we're going to go to new, we're going to go to mono, make sure that it's an audio track, create one or how many of them we need. Let's say we need 3 of them. 1 to 3 vocals. Boom. We're going to hit create. It's then going to establish us 3 mono channels. Now, if you were to look at the beat, you see the beat has 2 waves. One on that side, one on this side. This means that this is a stereo track. But if we're recording vocals, and what I'm showing you guys that we're only establishing mono tracks. So if we were to establish a stereo track and record from it, it would only record one side. See that? So if you see from this situation that to begin to record, we need to establish a mono track. Now that we got our tracks that we want to record off of, we're going to go over inputs. Now, a lot of people have difficulty because they don't understand input and outputs. So if you go to your channel and you go to this very top line, this is what's called your input and your output. Your input is basically your mic line. So it's my voice going to the microphone, into the system, into Pro Tools. That's my input. Now my output from this channel is out 1 and 2. And that out 1 and 2 is going to my master fader. Now, even if you don't have a master fader set up on Pro Tools, it automatically is by default going to out 1 and 2. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually establish an authentic master fader, a master channel. We go to new, we're going to go to master fader. We're going to make sure that it's in stereo this time. Make sure that master fader is in stereo. Hit create. Now when you see that the output from 1 and 2 is going to master. And this is a little bit more advanced, but once you get a chance to understand what you're doing, you're gonna eventually get to the point where you're gonna add effect processors to that master channel, either to make the song wider, more narrow, to compress the sound, to add gain, things of that nature. So just remember this top line, and depending on what kind of audio interface, let's say you're on my Focusrite Scarlett, it only has one place that you can hook up the mic input. So therefore you only have one mic input. But versus my Apollo, I have several mic inputs. I have 4 microphone inputs that I could do it. So once we see that establishment, and let's say here, you see those mic lines. You see A, mic line 2, 3, and 4. And this version of Pro Tools has the graphic error. That's the only thing that I don't like about it, because I'm using it on Yosemite. So just make sure that whatever mic line that you have your microphone hooked up to, that you go to that line. So look on your audio interface. If you have it plugged up to mic line 1, make sure you go to Pro Tools, mic line 1, and do that. Boom, and you hit that. The next thing to do is make sure that you arm your recording. Now, Pro Tools will not record if your channel is not armed. Once your channel is armed and you see a signal, you're going to record. Pro Tools simply will not record without this. So let me give you an example of this. So the record button on here, you could either let's go to normal. Try to record without it. So you see how Pro Tools gives you that no tracks are record enabled. So you have to make sure that the track that you're recording on is record enabled before you begin recording. So now that we know we have an establishment of what a channel is, how to establish a master fader, the next thing that we need to do is, and we're just going to establish it for now, but we're going to come back to it later because it's much more advanced. We're going to establish a bus. So we're going to go to new tracks again at the top. Go to new. Hit stereo, auxiliary. We're going to go to create. Now remember what I told you, that automatically your default channel, its output is 1 and 2, which is to the master fader. But actually, if we want to route that to somewhere else, to this bus, then we can do that. The only thing that we have to do is, you see auxiliary 1. As soon as we set that up, it came up as green. Now we just changed the input of this, because an auxiliary bus is not actually a channel that we're going to record on. But if we want to record multiple channels, 1, 2, 3, 4 channels, and all have them routed to the same place, we can do that. That's called busing. It's sending multiple channels to one singular source and putting effect processors on that particular channel. So why is this helpful? This is helpful because the more that you use plugins, and the more that you're going to start beginning to see that plugins really take a toll on your computer's energy, on your computer's ability to run. It is very, very heavy on your hardware. So if we can just, instead of putting all of the plugins on one channel, that's how we just put a plugin, a simple plugin here. I'll quit that one. Instead of having all of these plugins here and all of the plugins here, we can just reroute just the simple plugins that we have to this channel. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Let's get rid of those. Now to do that, we have to first establish an input on here. Remember, input, output, even then the bus runs the same way, input, output. Instead, we're not going to use this to record. We're going to use this for our effects. So the output, so the first thing that we have to do is we have to go to the input of the auxiliary track of the bus, go to bus, and then give it an open channel. And the open channel usually won't be highlighted. So once we go to bus 1 and 2, boom. Now, this is an input 1 and 2. Now we just go to our audio channel and we go to the output of our audio channel and we go to the highlighted channel, bus 1 and 2, boom. So now you see you have 3 signals. You have your input, you have your bus track, and that bus track is going to your master fader. Now we've created what's called a bus. That's how we create a bus. Now let's move on to the next step. Okay, next. Okay, now we're moving on. Now I know that when you're opening Pro Tools and you open it for the first time, things might seem a little bit overwhelming. You see all of these things. What is this tool, pencil tool? What is this sound thing? What is this wave? What's all of this? Only thing that I want you guys to worry about is what's in front of you. Now, your setup might not look like this. You say, man, how did you get all these channels? Well, if you go to this little box in the top left corner, you'll see this little scroll down menu. It won't be grayed out because you probably have a version of Pro Tools that doesn't have the graphic error. So I want you to uncheck comments. I want you to uncheck inserts F through J. The only thing that I want you to just concentrate on right now is just having what's checked is track color, input output, sends A through E, and insert A through E. That's the only thing that I want you to have set up. And if you notice, if we take away input outputs, now you can't see your input outputs. So that's why it's important. Boom. And if we take away, let's say we take away inserts A through E. So then it's important later because These inserts A through E is how you get to your plugin sets. So we have to keep those enabled, and the sends are something else that we'll establish later. We could take away the sends A through E, and as a matter of fact, let's do that too. Sends through A and E, let's just get rid of those, because I mean, sending tracks is another beast. It's for another advanced course that I can do in the future. So now that we got that established, we're gonna play our beat. We're gonna mute our click track. Now the first thing if you want to do to recording in Pro Tools, now that you got everything set up, is you want to give yourself what's called headroom, because right now you think that you're ready for recording. In actuality, you still aren't ready for recording, because we could record over this beat like this, but I'm going to show you something. Pay attention to your master fader. This beat is too loud. How you know it's too loud is I've already got it set down to negative 4.7, but if I take it back up to where it is, it's peaking. You see how that clipped? So if we record vocals over that, we would have to record vocals high enough to hear ourselves. So if we do that, this beat is already clipping, because once you see it going to the red right here, that's called peaking. So even though, you know, some peaks are artistically done, and let's try to avoid those if we can. As a matter of fact, peaking is not your friend. So what we have to do is we have to establish what's called headroom. How you do that? You go to the volume. This is your volume area right here, and you turn it down. So you go to the channel, you left click, and you turn it down. I like to turn it down to where in the master fader it's barely hitting in the yellow, or just, you know, a little, you know, a little up there in the yellow, but not up in this region. So we'll get it. Let me show you. So even though it's still hitting up here, the only thing that really matters is where is that level in our master fader. So we turned it down here to negative 9.8. Then the reason that we do that is because we have to compensate for the vocals. Now remember that your voice is an instrument. So if this is too loud, you're not going to be able to hear the voice. You're not going to be able to hear your vocals. You're not going to be able to know what to do when recording. So now that we got that established, let's figure out what to do and how to record. So the next step I want to do is I want to show you guys how to move around channels. So you move around channels by grabbing the channel, going to it, left clicking it, moving it up and down. I just want you to practice that for a second. Just take your channels, just move around in certain places. Take your master fader, put it at the top, because once you establish your sessions, you're gonna like putting your channels in certain places. Like I usually, like if I'm doing a vocal lead, if I'm doing my rap verse or my singing verse, I like to put that auxiliary track right under there, because I know that all of my effects processes are going to that particular channel. I know that I might have that one and other vocals going to that particular channel. I want to see that closely. And if I keep adding vocals and this is all the way down there, I don't know what's going on. So sometimes I like to directly see where my vocals are going. So I might like that channel particularly right there under my vocal track. So just left click the channels and move them up and down. Okay, boom. Now that we got that out of the way, let's try to do some recording. So now that we got our tempo set, we want to actually go in and record. Now, we could record right here. We could just on my recording here, and that'll set us ready for the record. And remember, the first step to recording is make sure that it's on your channel, that's on the appropriate channel. Mine is mic line 3, and you arm the recording. Now, what I'm on now is the record. So once you hit that button, you're gonna figure out that, okay, I can hear myself now. If everything is set up together, you have your interface set up, you're gonna be able to hear yourself. So you take it away, you arm it, you can hear yourself. Now this little I button is a direct monitor That means that you want to keep your mic on at all times. You want to be able to reference and hear yourself. And that's good if you have a booth and all of those things. I think that's necessarily very, very useful. And that's your monitor. That's your track input monitor. Your solo is if that's the only thing that you want to hear. And your mute button is exactly what it is. It's your mute button. You press it. That's your mute button. So before we record any track, we want to arm the track. So after we arm that track, after we arm that particular track, what we have to do is we can record. Now we can record just like this. Now if we press the button, space bar. If you hit that space bar, it's automatically going to record. But I'm going to show you guys a much quicker way that you're going to like to record. I'm not going to go over all of the recording differences, but I want you to go up here to your this record button here, and I want you to right click, and 4 or 5 settings should come up: normal, loop, destructive, quick punch, track punch, and destructive punch. I've never used any of these except like 2. I'm just going to be honest. And you don't really need it. And I only really use just one. The only one that I really use is quick punch. Boom. Now, quick punch allows me to press a button and record. So now that I got, only thing I have to do is just, as long as this is armed, as long as my track is armed on the side, I don't have to arm it up here. So then I could just go to my keyboard. If I have a long standard keyboard, it's like on my Mac keyboard, I just have to use the numpad and press 3. And it'll automatically record. And I can also do that to stop the recording. It won't stop the song from playing, but it'll stop the recording. Press 3. And this is particularly useful. That's particularly useful when you want to punch in and out. So now that we have that established, let's actually record some vocals, whatever. This is just a test. 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 So I got my vocals, I punched them in, I used my quick punch to punch them in. Now let's hear it. This is just a test. 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 So we have that established. Now you say, okay, cool, I got my first track done. What do I do? What you can do is, now this is the quick method. I want you to go to escape in the top left corner of your keyboard, and you're going to notice that you're going to see this little highlighting tool. Press escape and it's going to change into a hand signal. Your hand signal is your grabber tool in Pro Tools. And then the more times whenever you press escape, it's going to switch to something else. Now your pencil is what you use for automation. Then you have this little zoom in tool that if I hit that, it expands Pro Tools, which I hate. I never use that. I always just use Command Out and Command N to expand my tracks. I never use that. And then you have your trimmer tool. So again, you press escape, you see this little eye. This is your highlight tool. Hit escape again. That's your grabber tool. This is what you use to move vocals left, right, up, down. Command Z is to undo. So let's undo that. This is your sound. This is your particularly, this is your, like, it's not playback, but if you just want to hear, you know, your wave in depth, you can left click and go to Pro Tools. And this is like your scrubber. This is just a test. You can actually reverse it too. So hold left click your test. This is just a test. And that's particularly useful if you like to kind of like review tracks closely, if you want to hear if you did something, if you hear some clicking or some popping. But I never really use that either. No, that's just one of the tools that, you know, I'm kind of like, you know, it's not really useful. I'm not really paying attention to vocals that much unless I'm working with an artist or working with a singer. Now, then we have our trimmer tool. Now, if you see this little piece at the end, let's say if we want to get rid of that, we can just go to our trim tool, left click, and get rid of that. And it'll actually do the same thing with the other side. Or let's say if we want to get rid of a whole section, we could left click and we could hold. Or either we can expand back out. So boom. Your highlight tool is particularly useful if you want to highlight a certain section. And then we can do a lot of other advanced stuff like chopping, but that's for another thing. We're just learning how to record. I'll do that. So we're going to use our grabber tool, and we're going to just take this and we're going to drag it to the bottom channel. Now remember, we want this track to go to our bus. So what we'll do is we'll take the track that we just dragged it to, go to the output, go to bus 1, 2. Boom. Now we can do something else. Now let's record again. This is just a test. 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 Grab that. Bring that down as well. Now we did what was called stacking. Now that we have our mono established, I'm going to show you guys panning. Now panning, if you look under volume, you're going to see what's called pan. Pan means that you want the audio just to be heard either on one side or the other, or particularly more side than the other. So for example, I'll mute this track. I'll pan this left. This is just a test. This is just a test. Now you can only hear that on one side. Now let's say I want to pan the other one to the other side. This is just a test. This is just a test. Well, the other side isn't heard, because let me put that through bus 1 and 2. Here you go. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. Now you notice that both signals came through this auxiliary, creating a stereo track, because remember, our bus is stereo. So what we did was we created we created both of those signals going to that one bus. Now I can put effects on that, and this is much more advanced. So go to here, go to reverb. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. It's just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. Now you see how both of these channels can share one effects processors. Now I can add many effects to that, and then, you know, create a sound. So now that we got that out of the way, let's move on. You guys are doing great. You know, it's easy to record as long as you know what to do. Let's go to the next step. Okay, the next part in our journey is I just want to backtrack a little bit and go over what to look for. If you're recording and your mic is peaking way too high, like right now, my speaking voice, right now, my mic is not hitting too much here. When you're recording, you want to record at a low level. Now, you want to really control your volume from here and turn up your mic level from here. You don't really want to turn up, and I could show you guys. I can show you this. You don't want to really to be you don't want the signal to be so loud that it starts to distort. Especially here, like it's starting to crunch, and you hear that crunching sound. So what you want to do is you want to turn your inputs down either on your interface to make sure that you're getting an adequate level, and just turn the volume up on here. Because another thing is, when you record, let's say if you recorded that high, then Pro Tools is going to capture all of that hot energy. It's going to capture all of that frequency, and it's not going to be good. So what you want to do is you want to record lower and turn your volume up here, because I could always use effect processors, gains, compressors, or limiters to turn or boost, or a trimmer or any kind of effects to boost the signal up, or either I could just simply turn it up on a channel. So now that now that we know that we want to barely, if anything, we want to just have a speaking level where it doesn't go into the yellow. If we speak on the microphone and it goes into the yellow, the signal is too hot. That's just one of those main rules that I usually like to go by. If we're speaking on the mic and it's going into the yellow, it's too hot. So make sure that your levels are pretty accurate, pretty adequate. And if you can't hear it, just turn your headphones up on your audio interface, but don't turn it up by turning it up on your system, but by turning up your mic line. Leave your preamp on your mic line alone, and just if you can hear it here, just turn your headphones up, or either turn your volume bar up and down to get more volume. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over moving vocals. So let's say, and I'm going to move this to channel. So another thing I want to show you guys we'll do is highlighting. Now, if we want to move two channels around at the same time, we'll just highlight this. We click one track, we hold shift, and it'll highlight another channel. Now, once it's highlighted, we can let go of shift and it'll just automatically move those two vocals where we need it. Boom. So that's how you move. That's how you move around channels up and down. So the next move is, if we're going to move vocals, now this is where the tempo comes into play at. We have to have our tempo established, because our tempo establishes a time marker on Pro Tools. So let's say if we need to move something around. What we need to do is we need to go to grid, because if it's on slip and we go to the grabber tool, it's just going to slip any old kind of way. It doesn't have any kind of commitment to any of the measurements on Pro Tools. Want to do that? Want to do them? Undo those, and we actually want to go to grid. Now this is very important. Now in grid, you have these time measurements, and you can do them by minutes and seconds, time codes, samples, feet and frames. I always keep it on bars and beats. That's one thing. Always keep it on bars and beats, because then what I could do is I can go to my highlight tool, use this, hit Command C, and I'll give you the shortcut keys, and I could go here, highlight it, press Command V to paste, and now I just moved over. So let's say if this was a hook part, my hook came in right here, I just moved over vocals. Or another thing that I could do is I could highlight and I could press Command D. Let's say if I need to copy something right after it. Boom. Or if that's not in the right spot, boom. I can just drag it. As long as it's highlighted, I can just move it around wherever it needs to be. So boom, now that's established, I can just record something else in between those. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test part 2. This is just a test part 2. Highlight that. Control C, Control V. So that's how we, use our tools. And then also highlighting something major, deleting it. It's just simply what it is. If you want to bring something back, Control Z, undo, delete it. Just simply press delete. Or either you can right click it, go to cut, which is self-explanatory. So now that we have that out of the way, let's go to the last phase in recording our vocals. So the next phase into our recording journey is adding effects. This is the fun part. This is how you color your sound. This is basically how you add character, depth, and personality to your song. It's because now that we can take, we can take this and we can add something to our channels. So what we do is we make sure, right click here, we'll go to inserts, and we make sure we have our inserts checked off. Our inserts A through E. Now we see that, now we can add plugins. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go here, we're going to left click into the insert area. You should have 4 of them. Go to plugins. Now we can start adding plugins. Let's say if you want to add a reverb. Now this doesn't affect both channels. So if I want to affect both channels, I will put this effect on the bus. But if you have an effect processor, it's only going to affect those vocals on that particular channel, unless it's going through a bus. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. So do you see how one side has the effects and the other one doesn't? Now, here's a useful tip. If I want to copy the same plugin to my other channel, I just hold Alt Option and I just drag it down. Now it's on both of them. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. Now when recording, we could get so deep where, like I said, we could add a bunch of plugins on that channel, but eventually, depending on how fast and how powerful our computer is, we may start experiencing errors, and we might start experiencing all kind of problems going on with our computer because our computer is not powerful enough to handle all of these plugins. So what we do is we get rid of those. Let's get rid of those. So you also get rid of them by right clicking and then go to no insert, and that'll just erase your plugins on it. But since both of my inputs are going to bus 1 and 2, what I could do is I could go here into the inserts, and then I could go to a plugin, reverb. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. Now you see that we have 2 channels going through a bus, and then we have that effect processor on both of those vocals. And then I can add another one if I want to. Let's go to delay. Extra long delay. One thing about your delays, you have to turn the mix down. Since it's stereo, I gotta hold shift, dial that back. This is just a test. Go here, and usually your delay will have a meter, and this is where tempo comes in at. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. And I can make, and depending on the notation, as you know, you have a 16th, eighth, a quarter, 16th, eighth, quarter note, half note, whole note. So then I could just hold shift, go here, and I can make the delay longer or either shorter. So just remember, if you don't know what these are, this means longer this way, shorter that way. This is just a test. This is just a test. This is just a test. So basically, that's how you add effect processors to your song. So then you can get to playing with it. You know, you can add all kind of effects, and then you can, try to achieve a sound that you want. So now that we got that effects processors, we've done a lot of the hard work. And then once you record your song, you have the effect processors where you want to do your bounce down. Now your bounce down is your last step. Let's say you have a whole song recorded and you're ready to bounce it down. You want to listen to it in the car. You want to hear it on your iPhone or either on your Android phone. You want to play it on you want to put it on CD. You want to play it wherever you want to play it. You want to put it on the internet. You want to put your song out. How you do that is she goes to the top. You go to bounce to disc. Oh, and there's another thing that I failed to mention, is that you can't bounce down your song if your song is record enabled. So you have to take that off, go to file, go to bounce, and then we're going to bounce it to wave. So let's do that. It won't let you do it while the input monitor is on either. So let's do that. So we're going to go to File. We're going to go to Bounce to Disk. And it's going to give us a couple of different options. It's going to say Wave MP3, interleave, format interleave, 24-bit sample rate. If you're bouncing it down, what you want to do is, if you need to put it on like iTunes or you want to put it on your distribution, I would bounce it down to CD quality. So that means take it to 16-bit 41K and bounce it down there. If you want to do it a little bit higher and you want to preserve the quality, bounce it down in the same format as you did as you recorded it. But if you need to put it, if you know that you need to send it to radio, or you need to put it on iTunes, or your major distributors only usually accept these formats: 16-bit 41K, 41 kilohertz, and then you press bounce. Then we're going to find out where we want to bounce a song to. Go to desktop. Now the thing is, you have an option to bounce it down to Wave or MP3. I usually like to always bounce it down to Wave and convert it later. Or either if you know you're going straight to your source, then you could just always bounce it as an MP3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name the song Begin Test. And then I'm going to save it. And then you can stop. You can stop the process. Let me take this off. You can stop the process of your bounce by pressing escape, but that's essentially how you bounce it down. Once you bounce it down, it's going to render the whole song, and it's going to put it wherever you assign that particular track to be sent to. And that's basically it. That's everything that you need to know, the basics of recording on Pro Tools. We have other stuff like sample time code, meters, markers, but if you're trying to record quickly, that's that's bare minimum knowledge of what you need to do. Because if you're recording vocals, now we're not talking about just simply recording, guitars and recording the band and setting up for the more advanced stuff. If you're just trying to get Pro Tools going, and you're trying to record vocals and you're trying to import beats, that is what you need to know. Now, once you get comfortable enough, what you can do is you can go to the next level, and I'm going to show you how. Now that I've given you the knowledge on how to navigate Pro Tools well enough to be able to record yourself, I want you to take this knowledge and I want you to build your confidence. I want you to go in. I want you to go just experiment with some stuff. Even get on the internet and go look up some stuff that you might not, that I've necessarily not have taught you today. But I want you to just build your confidence by recording more. Try to record every day if you can to build some consistency. And then once you're ready, I want you to go into the description below and grab one of my templates. My templates are absolutely going to take your sound to the next level, because the difference is you won't have to worry about where the plugins go. You won't have to worry about the effects processes and, placing things in certain. It's going to save you time and money from going to the studio. It's going to save you time, energy, and effort trying to figure out where things go. It's going to make you more productive, and it's going to make you sound like you're already there. I want you to just close your eyes for a second and just imagine you just being a professional artist or a professional whatever you want to be, singer, rapper, or whatever you want to be. And you already creating that sound, and you're already sounding like your favorite artist, and people celebrating you like them for having that great sound. So that's what my template is going to do for you, is that if you just take the time and opportunity, because you've already seen from my previous videos what they can do is that they're going to give you the advantage. So what I want you to do is go in the description below. Go and check out one of those templates when you're ready, when you're confident enough, and grab one of those templates. It's absolutely going to change the way you sound and you record forever. It's Fedarro. Give me a call if you have any other questions. I'm glad that you were patient enough to make it through this whole course, and I can't wait to see what you create. Contact me if you need me. My email and my information is below. It's Fedarro. Thank you.